Welcome very much. We're happy to have you with us. Those of you who participated in our first session last week, welcome back. We heard good things, so I guess that's why you've returned. This week we're going to focus on curriculum and instruction. I think we put together a lot of information in an hour, and so we're going to take you through that process. So our goals with this program is to talk about the fundamentals of the technology that supports learning, to talk about curriculum issues and strategies, what the challenges are, the importance of organizational structure and staff training, which we're going to talk about more next week, socio-emotional support for everyone, and we're going to talk about more in a subsequent session, and focus solutions for people who participate. And so a few people talked about last week that they would be interested in putting themselves forward as mini cases for us, so part of it to get a solution for them and to hear from people who are in similar situations like you all, and to walk away from their participation with a clear idea of what they need to do to move forward. So, and we'll talk about that more at the end of this session, and we'll be doing more of that focused on you, focused on your problems, focused on coming up with solutions to your problems in the next several weeks. So anyway, let's get started. We showed this useful wheel last week. Let me just refresh everybody's memory. This is the distance education universe. And we've got learning systems. This is like learning management systems like Google Classroom. We've got delivery systems. This is like Zoom, like we're using now. We've got instruction and curriculum systems. This is like Lumos or iReady. We got management systems. This is what keeps track of attendance and grades. And we've got an underlying hardware system that includes security over here. You sit in the middle of this baffling array of options, all of which are complicated with many, many options. But this is the world. So last week, we focused sort of on everything. We sort of gave an overview of a lot of things. This week, we're going to dig deeper into curriculum issues. So a famous quote that we like, Moore Kearsley from 1996, planned learning that normally occurs in a different place from teaching, and as a result requires special techniques of course design, special instruction techniques, special methods of communication by electronic and other technology, as well as organizational and administrative arrangements. So here we are, 1996, 25 years ago. These folks, you know, this is almost before the invention of the telephone, 1996. These people in 1996 gave us notice that when you move learning to a different place from teaching, you got a whole lot of issues you need to manage. So the purpose of these symposia is to help you figure all that out. So this is a continuum from fully online curriculum with learning done online and at a distance and no face-to-face component, going through this continuum down to the bottom where it's traditional, entirely face-to-face settings with few or no online resources or communication. This is probably, you know, school that you and I went to, you know, paper and pencil, sit at a desk. And that was, you know, no online resources whatsoever. And then there's a whole number of options that get you there. So, you know, as we start at the bottom, face to face, we can add integrated online resources, but as an option, you know, not required for students to be online. We can have classroom instruction with significant required online components that extend learning beyond the classroom and beyond the school day. The online tools follow the students home. Mostly or fully online curriculum in computer lab or classrooms where students meet every day. So now we're integrating these tools into the school, mostly or fully online curriculum with select days required in the classroom or computer. So now we're much more in a hybrid world. And then we get up here fully online curriculum with options for face-to-face instruction, but not required. And then where we started at the very top, entirely face-to-face entirely online with no face-to-face component. So, you know, this is, every single one of these represents a decision and choices that you make, and you make in concert with your staff and your faculty. So what are some of these questions to consider as you make those decisions? And I'm just going to highlight a few of these. Please take some time to review them in more detail and think about your own situation later. So, you know, who gets involved while they're learning at home? Can't get away from this, you know, or their parents have the time to give it? Are the parents capable? Are the parents interested? Are the parents technologically sophisticated? Is the language spoken at home different from the language of instruction? I mean, this is a huge issue in the United States, everywhere. You know, I have a friend who's a teacher in Queens, New York, which was a big epicenter of COVID. But 60% of the people who live in Queens, which is one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, were born outside the United States. So, you know, the primary language at home for a majority of the people in Queens is not even English. So this has a huge impact on what you design, how you offer it, who delivers it, what you're expecting from people at home. Will there be a general or complete shift towards online learning? So here we sit at a decision point. How much online are we going to give? Is this a permanent change? Even if we go from entirely online back, are we going to stop at hybrid? You know, in other words, just to go back for a second. So if we go all the way up here because of school closings and COVID quarantines, are we going to jump back to something down here? Or are we going to slide down one step at a time and add things to make it more of a hybrid experience? You know, what's the level of digital literacy of the students? Obviously, huge variety. Some students, you know, they've had tablets since they were 2 years old. Others have, you know, have no computer skills at all. So, curriculum, instruction, and design. Curriculum and instructional design. Curriculum is the what. This is what we're teaching. Educational design is the how we're teaching it. The what and the how. Okay, challenges for implementation. Ensuring curricular coherence. So this is maybe your first or second class about education theory. You talked about coherence of curriculum. So ensuring curricular coherence across sections of a course or across campuses, championing a new pedagogy. Are you going to introduce a new pedagogy and try to make them all implemented well, implemented successfully? Are you, or how do you fully recognize faculty contributions when their individually authored content is shared by other faculty? So this is a big issue. Who does the curriculum? Does the faculty do some of their own curriculum? Who owns it? Does it get shared with other faculty? Do they want it shared with other faculty? Do you want it shared with other faculty? Are you holding faculty members accountable for their use of online materials in a blended environment? So are you giving them materials and requiring them to use it? If you are, how are you holding them accountable? Are you assessing and evaluating performance? We're going to talk about some tools for doing that in a few minutes. And understanding the technology will impact the instructor's ability to do all this correctly. Can they communicate with their students? Can they implement it? Many instructors just don't know this stuff, have a lot of trouble with it. And we're going to talk about training, teacher training in a lengthy section in a subsequent class. Okay, where do you begin? Okay, but I say here, but you already know this. So step one, identify the most important standards and learning targets that were taught in the past year. So where are they? You know, what were there? Where did you leave them off at the end of the last year? Determine which critical standards should be prioritized. And we're going to give an example of this in a few minutes. And then step two, you got to shore up where they should have been at the end of last cycle, the end of last term, the end of last year. And you need to map the content over a span of each week with specific targets, learning goals for each one, and continue to do this for a map that covers to the end of the school. And we'll show you an example of this. So, you know, figure out what you are trying to do and then create a detailed map to get there. Okay, so here's a coherence map. Probably many of you have seen this. And so we start off what did the students do last year apropos of these learning standards? Here's the previous level where they were. These become the foundational standards for next year's this year's learning. And where do we want to get them next year? We want to master these standards. These become the dependent, these become the foundational. And then we have the priorities that are key to getting us from the previous to the next. So what makes this a priority is that you can't master these three without having mastered this. This makes it a priority. You cannot move to the next level unless you've mastered the priority standards. Down here is an example of one that's a low dependency. So first of all, there's only one learning goal at the next level. Up here, there are three. Here, there's one priority standard that's weakly connected to another one. So this becomes disproportionately important, i.e. it becomes a priority for us. Okay, so this is just the low dependency example in a larger format. Okay, so curriculum development, so here's a standard definition is defined in the widest sense to include everything that shapes the student's learning experience. So this is the technology, the pedagogy, the community. We don't leave this out. This is really foundational to curriculum development. And the curriculum for an online instruction, unlike traditional face-to-face curriculum, must consider what the expectations for the student participation, assignments, and pacing in advance. So what are you expecting the students to do? What are you expecting the students to do? We've got all of this mixed together here in our funnel, but we don't come out with something in the final analysis until we've made a clear understanding of what we're expecting from the students. So here's some options. So you can buy outside curriculum. So the benefits of that, this is like Lumos, like iReady, is that, they have specialized writers, they have specialized instructors, they have developers, technology people. They offer a wide variety of curriculum and courses, more user testing and user feedback. So, they've been through a round of beta testing, multiple rounds of beta testing, and they're constantly revising, updating their curriculum. On the other hand, you could build it internally, and there are pluses to that. What are those? Well, you can ensure proper alignment with state and district standards. So every state is different from every other state. Districts are different from each other, from other districts. You can more incorporate the teachers and their input into the process. It's cost effective if teachers are doing this as part of their regular workload and you're not paying extra for it. It's an opportunity to incorporate specific instructional philosophies. So if your school, your program has a specific philosophy of education and you want to apply it to all your curriculum, better to build it yourself to be able to make that happen. You need to maintain quality assurance. So everything in education has multiple levels of reviews, right? So we have peer reviews, we have administrative reviews, we have district reviews, we have state reviews, we have association reviews. I mean, you know, there's numbers of levels of reviews. So here are some of the reviews that you will have to go through with your curriculum and your program. Obviously, local administrators, which may be you, are doing the review. Peer review teams are reviewing curriculum, reviewing specific teacher performance. District curriculum, districts may have their own curriculum teams which come and visit you. Subject matter specialists will look at what you're offering, and then external reviews, external experts. And the system of education is largely driven by external reviewers who are regarded as experts to pass judgment on the work that we're doing. Courses then have to be approved by the State Department of Education. Everyone knows this is like major headache material. Students have to complete the end of module surveys. Were they engaged? Did they like it? How much work did they do? What grade did they expect? Or these kinds of questions. You're going to do requests for proposals for course development that describe instructional theories that guide the online course specifications. And you can evaluate courses using, here's a book all about essential principles of qualities, specifically designed for guidelines for web-based courses for middle and high school students. It's a good reference. So the curriculum design process ends up being like these bricks. We start with a vision. We determine what your intention is. We go to number 2, outline researching. Go to number 2, outline overarching topics. What are we covering? We review the current curriculum. We organize our standards. Now this is beginning to look like that chart with the arrows. Organize our standards. We write the lessons. We create and attach a variety of assessments to each of them. We determine the materials and the resources needed, and then we go back and we put it all together. And the last thing is, and it's not here, it'll be on subsequent charts, is feedback. All of this process is a big loop. So the process of managing anything is setting goals, monitoring results, and giving feedback. Anything, whether you're managing teachers, you're managing the cafeteria, you're managing your curriculum. So to simplify it to its most fundamental, you're setting goals, monitoring results, and giving feedback. And the feedback is the loop here. And none of this works without that. Management does not work without feedback. I'm sure many of you have had bosses who didn't like giving feedback. After all, it can lead to sometimes unpleasant conversations or difficult conversations. And so they sort of skip that step. When they skip that step, they destroy the whole process. It's useless. So instructional design, Torsten and Postlethwaite said, the term instructional design describes the complete process of analyzing what is to be taught, how it is to be taught, conducting tryouts, so this is the beta testing in today's language, and assessing whether the learner learned it. So assessing, so this is that feedback loop. Instructional design has the feedback loop. It plays an important role in bridging pedagogy and technology, which the way we see it, have merging into one big process, focuses on the most effective way to present the content, and it gives structure to the student's process of working through the course material. And this is part of those bricks, laying it out step by step in small chunks. Okay, so popular instructional materials for models for distance learning, the ADDIE model. These are, I would say, we're gonna show 3 or 4 models, fundamentally very similar. It depends how you like to visualize it yourself. People think of these things in different ways. Everyone learns in a different way, and we conceptualize these things in a different way. So, you should think about it. Find one of these that seems comfortable to you and use it. So we start with analysis, design, development. So this is general, this is more overall design. This is more specific. Then we implement it, and then we evaluate it, and then we give the feedback. We go back and we start all over again. Here's another way of looking at it, the Assure model. We analyze the learners, we state the objectives, we select the methods, we utilize the material and the media, we require the learner's participation. Remember, we said early on when you start the process, what are you expecting the students to do? How much time and what specifically are you expecting them to do? And then evaluate and revise. This is the feedback loop, and here the feedback loop in this visual presentation is extremely clear. It's just a big circle, and you're constantly going around, and presumably every time you loop around, you make it better. And then here's a little bit more complex way of looking at this. So this model called the Kemp model, we start with the problems, we go to learner characteristics, we analyze the tasks, we have instructional objectives, we now sequence the content, we make it specific with strategies, we design the message, how are we going to deliver it? This is where the technology comes in, we evaluate it, and we do this whole thing. Again, if you look at these outside rings, planning, implementation, managing, support services, and then we start again. If we do it, we look at the internal ring, we revise, we evaluate, we evaluate in a formative way, and we have a confirmative evaluation. So we're constantly revising it. So we're doing these processes and on the outside, and we are reviewing and evaluating on the inside loop. And all of these are more or less saying the same general points in different ways. Use what's useful to you, use what's useful to you and your teachers. So content and materials. So millions of options. Last week we gave a real menu of options for all kinds of parts related to the distance learning, online learning, from the curriculum tools to the technology to cybersecurity. And, so here you have this real giant menu to choose from, print instructional materials, digital instructional materials, open educational resources, of which there are lots of them, and many of them very, very good. Many of these open, and I would say open meaning free educational resources, what your mode is, and then what's the library collection. And when I see this list, it reminds me of a conversation I had with a fellow who owned a number of restaurants, had done this for a number of years, had been in the restaurant business for a number of years, was very successful. He was talking about growing his business in a class of mine, and he made the following point. And the point was this: the food is the least important part. He said, doing good food, providing good food, finding a good chef, he said, that's easy. He said, I can change the menu in a day. I can have a restaurant that's an Italian restaurant on Tuesday, and by the end of the week, I can have it be a Chinese restaurant or a Mexican restaurant or any format that you want. He said, the food is the easy part. He said, after all, he says, and I always remember this, he says, if you want good food, go to your mother's house. She cooked food for you the way you liked it, the way you remember, that's evocative of your family and of when you were young. He said, it's the food is the least of it. It's all the other things that go around it. It's the lighting, it's the noise level, it's the manners of the wait staff, it's the price points, it's the, atmosphere, it's the location, it's parking, on and on. He said these are the issues that really determine whether a place is successful. So I make this challenge to you, is that it's easy for us in education to focus on the education tools, to focus on the multiplication table. But you know what? The multiplication table is the multiplication table. The learning experience, the grading experience, whether or not you're effective at teaching somebody, are all these other things that surround it. So this is the atmosphere, this is the technology, this is how you test, this is how you're evaluating. This is whether you have students work in teams or work individually. All these other things determine whether it's engaging, it's fun, it's effective, and you're managing it for success. The multiplication table is a little bit like, the chicken parmesan on the table. It is what it is. It's not that hard to do, but it's all the things around it that make it a good experience and effective and make it successful. So I don't know, think of yourself as a restaurateur, maybe rather than an educator, and you're providing an experience. And of course, we all feel sorry for anybody in the restaurant business today. So factors to consider: feasibility of implementation of a hybrid model, learner, what are we asking of learner interactivity? Are we asking the learner to interact with the content, to interact with the instructor, to interact with other learners? Are we supporting them with devices, with connectivity, with adult supervision other than the teachers, with peer interaction, with a conducive environment? This is such an important issue. People need spaces and environments that are conducive to learning. Again, maybe a little bit like our restaurant example, the environment is critically important. Course deployment platform capabilities. What does the platform deliver? And then, of course, we start with analyzing the learner characteristics. Who are they? What are their demographics? What are their backgrounds? What are their learning styles, individually and collectively? This is, of course, complex. And this is why making these decisions, doing these evaluations, coming up with plans, implementing them, takes somebody who's extremely capable. All right, special populations we should note, students who are on IEPs need special attention. This also plays havoc with your budget and planning, but they need to be taken care of. English language learners, also special needs. Students who need multi-tiered systems of support, and students without devices and connectivity. These special populations require special attention, special programs, and special allocations of resources to make them as effective learners as the general population. We're gonna take 1 second. Lumos has created a distance learning kit, which is a very cool resource for teachers and administrators. It's really an artificial intelligence tool that may remind you of things you see in other places, maybe banks or on a Microsoft website. And so we're just going to take a couple minutes because Mukunda Krishnaswamy, who's the founder and CEO of Lumos, can do a better job of explaining it more clearly than I can. So Mukunda, can you take over for a minute and go through this with everyone?
Oh, thank you, Professor. Really happy to see a lot of you come back, and then hopefully we'll have a great discussion as well. So as you know, in the last 2 sessions itself, we've seen there is lots of information around this topic of distance learning. And I bet like a lot of these questions are running through your head. when we are thinking about different aspects of distance learning, from what does the acronym ADDIE stand for to how to do something in Google Classroom, right? And there's like tons of questions, and it's a very common problem. And no educator can keep up with all this information that's coming out. And so to address this issue, we started this, an interactive distance learning database of frequently asked questions around this topic. So let me quickly show you how it works. Professor, if you could click on that hyperlink on distance learning. So on this web page, if you could scroll down a bit, there is a search box, just like, Google search. You can easily look at the list of frequently asked questions, and they're organized by different topics such as curriculum, hardware, network. And many of the things that you're hearing in Professor Rogoff's class are being documented in the respective sections. And also there is a search box, just like the simple Google search, you can search for questions and find relevant answers. And it does it in a very smart way. It is able to understand, for example, the same question of the topic, even if it is asked a little differently, it's able to find. So if you could do me a favor, Professor, maybe click on one of the questions so that they can actually see how the answer reveals itself. So that is, if you're browsing, you get to see the answers. And of course, you can type in a question. Let's put something that we learned today, like what is ADDIE or something like that. So it fetches the information from the database and makes it immediately available. And I want to draw your attention to something that's very unique to this. So let's ask a question that is not in the database. So for example, we could ask a question like, what instructional models are useful for small districts? So click search. Boom. So it's telling us that there is no results were found. But what is very interesting here is that visitors of this page have the opportunity to request an answer to this. And Professor Rogoff and a team of volunteers are monitoring the incoming questions. So they're going to answer them wherever possible, as quickly as possible. And by the way, we are looking for volunteers. So if some of you, after you experience this, want to become part of the community, we'd love for you to engage with us and help answer questions, because the intent here is to actually put it in the hands of educators throughout the country. For example, you have colleagues that are not in the class today, and they could benefit from some of the topics that we've been discussing, and making it easily accessible to them through this platform is one of the goals of this project. And another interesting thing here is that you can easily share and distribute this information. It's an open source database of questions, everything around distance learning. So there is also an embed code that you can request on the page itself. It's also in the PowerPoint that we are sharing with you. So if your school website administrator can add those few lines of code, then essentially the widget that we are experiencing here can be made available on any website of your choice or a blog. The link is in the chat in today's meeting, as well as in the PowerPoint. And so would love to answer any questions at a later time if there are any. Professor, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, here's this embed code that's in the slides. Yeah, anyway, super cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get back in curriculum and instructional tools. This is somewhat of a review of things we covered last week. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but curriculum solutions, this is for coordinators, teachers, department leads, and this helps you map the curriculum. It sets up planning templates, it helps you get organized and structured. Then there are digital learning platforms. So this is a core functionality for teachers and students. This is the lessons, adaptive learning solutions so that they're assessing how a student is doing, finding what their weaknesses are, and helping them focus on those weaknesses to repair them. They're assessing student performance individually and overall. They're tracking progress. And, this, which I personally think is key, is to, differentiate instruction, through adaptive learning. So are we providing each individual student what he or she needs, what's most effective for them? Digital assessment solutions, again, we mentioned this last week. This is for everybody, including parents, administrators, and teachers. So customized tests, the tests get delivered via digital devices with security tools built in, such as rotating the questions, rotating the answers, putting time requirements on it. They compile the assessment and analytical reports, and make it easy. I mean, this part, because they do the grading is all done by the system. It's, makes it as easy as possible for the teacher and the administration. So, this is something we pulled together, I think very useful, I hope, for you, is, what's the recommended student and teacher daily online workload? So I'm sure many of you have been overwhelmed by Zoom meetings, maybe, including this one. There's just a limit to how many hours a day you can spend staring at your screen or engaging with people on Zoom. And of course, this is being studied now. It'll be very interesting to see what the studies show. But anybody who has spent 6, 8, or more hours a day in Zoom meetings or other kinds of interactive things, knows they come away with a what can I say? Need for a rest, a need for a drink, a need for a bubble bath, I don't know, something to sort of take their head out of that. And so what is it? So, 20 to 60 minutes a day for, young children, even, 6th to 8th graders, 90 minutes, 180 minutes, 180 minutes, that's 3 hours, that's a lot, but, they can manage that. And then very important is that the material within this time period has to be broken up into chunks. People can't take, and the younger you are, or maybe the older you are, you can't take, 40 minutes of hard driving teaching instruction. So you need to really set your goals, make them modest, don't expect to achieve everything that you would hope to, do it in small chunks. Here, even for older kids, one subject area in a class. So, it really argues, and we talked about this last week, is that you need to be an incrementalist. You need to be happy to move the ball forward in small steps. Okay, suggested remote instruction framework. I think there's a very useful chart. I know it's a lot of words, but use it. I'm not going to read it to you, but use it afterwards. So we can look at learning experience dimensions in 3 ways: expository, active, or interactive. And is it synchronous or asynchronous? And then it gives us what the face-to-face alternatives are and what the face-to-face learning enhancements might be using technology. So if we want to have an interactive, just go to the bottom row here, if we want to have an interactive, asynchronous learning experience, face-to-face professional development for science teachers through threaded discussions. So these are, highly interactive message boards on topics. So there's like, forums, discussion boards, threaded discussions, chat rooms, etc. And then we can enhance it with supplemental threaded discussions for pre-service teachers participating in face-to-face course on science methods. So we can let these teachers experience this environment in an asynchronous way. This makes their learning more interactive, and when they go into the classroom, they're more comfortable using these tools. I mean, I think it's a big issue with teachers. If you haven't used any of these tools, it's very hard to teach people to use them or to feel comfortable. So anyway, I give you this chart, use it as a reference, use it as a way to stimulate your own thinking about how you can design a curriculum for your students and even for your teachers that will achieve your learning objectives. So suggestions for additional activities. Again, this is a tool that we hope will be useful for you to supplement an online learning environment or hybrid one, is to remember that all of these things need to be paid attention to, indeed nurtured. So, puzzles, word searches, writing journals, keeping a diary, drawing a map of your neighborhood, building with blocks and Legos, these all stimulate people in a different way, nurture them, let them bring back that experience into the online learning. Focus on physical activity as well. Studies show that people who exercise reasonably rigorously get an improvement in mood more than taking antidepressant drugs. It's easy, it's cheap, it's fun, makes you feel better, keeps you healthier, and it works for everybody. So, for anybody who's in that environment of staring at screens day and night, take a walk, take a dance class, do a dance class virtually, yoga, all of these things. Things to feed your spirit and soul, music, creative arts, meditation, etc. The environment makes a big difference. Are you working in a clean room? Is it quiet? Are you doing things that take care of others, taking care of pets, taking care of your grandmother? These are good environmental things that make people more mentally healthy and allow them to engage online more completely. And of course, family, can't get away from how important this is on every measure. So interacting positively with your family, extremely important. And this is something that you can talk to your teachers about, your teachers can talk to your students about. Okay, what does a distance learning lesson plan look like? Well, here it is, looks like a battle plan, and I guess it is a battle plan. So when it's all said and done, you end up with a detailed program of what you're going to do every day. This is for an entirely online program. There's no synchronous sessions in this map. But when it's all finished, the teachers, the students, they all see what are they doing, what's required of them, where are they getting it, you can't have a complex system like this without a presentation of it in an organized, usable way that you and your students and everybody can refer to, including, obviously the parents. Okay, so ideal instructional practices content. This is a long list that goes over several slides, giving it to you as something that you can refer to as an idea feeder to you, something that you can look at as you begin to plan what you're doing, to look at this list and say, am I covering this issue? How might I cover it? Have I thought about this idea? So is there more I need to do? So this is everything from having a deep understanding of the varying learning styles of your students to building in course components to reflect the interests of the students, to provide alternative options for students participating in a virtual class. Is there other ways that they could do this? Are you providing transcripts or pre-recorded audio or video used by students? These are all, like, I would just call them an idea dump of things that you could do. Are you utilizing virtual museum tours? A lot of museums have added these virtual tours while they're closed to physical visitors, and some of them are fantastic and they're engaging, and video demonstrations. So anyway, very cool. A science museum has added a lot of stuff, and of course YouTube only has 10 million options for you to look at. Have you planned to include parents in the process? Have you considered assisted technology? Are you providing visibility to students' online work? On and on and on. Lots of options for you to consider. How are you encouraging parents to participate more? What are you asking them to do? I would say that one of the themes of a number of things on this list is that you're not just asking the parents to be judges of what you're doing with their child. You're asking them to be active participants by doing things such as drawing or writing poems, or playing games with their particular games with their kids, doing puzzles with them. So that the conversation with parents that follows is not just them telling you all the things that you should be doing, but you also asking them, are they participating in this process and how important that is? And this will not only help the student, it will make the parent feel better, more active, have a better understanding of what issues their child is struggling with, what areas the child is excelling in. Okay, so let's take a look at the big picture here. Step away for a minute. So we're coming off here, we're in the COVID and the summer slide. The multiplication table is now a distant memory. So kid comes back to school, let's take a refresher test, let's measure where they are, let's specify and identify what that learning loss is. Let's offer them some remedial practice. Billy, you seem to have forgotten the 7 tables. And so let's, let me supply you with some online learning tools that focus on the 7 table. I'm just making this up because I struggled with the 7 table and I still do. So the remedial practice, now when the child has finished all this, they're ready for the new academic year, and to go back to that, they're ready to move up to the next step of learning. And let me just go back to this. Hold on one second. Here we are. So now in essence, you identified where they slipped in the foundational standards. You went back, you covered the 7 table, multiplication table again, and they're now ready to move up to the next grade level. And this is the most direct, simplified presentation of this issue. Okay, so a few other overall guidelines. We're getting close to wrapping up. Start from scratch. Don't just migrate existing courses. Everything is changing. The tools are changing. Your understanding is changing. Your teacher's understanding and comfort with technology and online tools is changing. Focus on increasing student involvement. So key. Increase student involvement through projects, teams, polls, presentations, exercises, all of these other things. Outline in detail with many small parts, so you end up with that table of your plan that's got a lot of detail to it. Maintain live faculty involvement. So you can't just do this by saying we're moving online and the teachers are going to review the grades. Absolutely not going to work. So how can you maximize live faculty involvement? Well, least you can do is they can call the student from time to time, hopefully, frequently. They can have synchronous classes. They can comment on assignments in a real-time basis. So the more that the student feels that there's a real live faculty person involved in their education, the better it's going to work. Don't expect to grade or respond to every student activity. So if you do a good job of creating activities, posts, exercises, journals, the teacher can't possibly grade and respond to every one of them. So, pick your spots, include videos for student assignments, so the teacher can record a video. We talked about last week, like Loom, extremely easy tool to use to integrate with the assignments. The teacher has a video, a little circle, whatever, in the bottom of the screen that says, hi, everyone, this is Mr. Smith. Here's the assignment for this week. And talk about it, talk about how they did last week. Takes very, very little time, very easy for the students to use, and many options for how you can do that. Set the course goals, specify the competencies. So this is, we talked about this, define the assessment process, then work backwards. How are you going to assess success towards reaching your goals? And then are the tools there to hit those goals and to manage that assessment process and to get an A on the test, to manage the test is the assessment. Focus on what's measurable. And here I'm going to give you examples of words that lead to measurable outcomes and words that lead to non-measurable outcomes. So if you ask a student to explain something, to compare things, or to solve a problem, these are measurable assignments. You can measure how well they've explained it. You can grade it. You can grade how well they compared things. And you can grade how well they solved the problem. Other words that lead to non-measurable things: appreciate and learn. Did you appreciate Beethoven's Fifth Symphony that we heard earlier today? Yes, I appreciated it. I don't know. How do you know? How do you grade it? Did you learn about how Beethoven used the timpani in the orchestra? Well, I don't know. I don't know how you student says they learn. You have to take their word for it. If you ask them to explain how Beethoven used the timpani in the Fifth Symphony, that you can grade. Build in fun and engagement. This is for everybody. Teachers, everybody likes to have more fun and engagement. Everybody learns better in that environment. Outline the course in detail, as we talked about. Don't reinvent the wheel. Build on existing content. Don't replicate it, but build on it. From schools, publishers, previous courses, you got a lot of things. These, open libraries are fantastic, and we provide some links to those. Your role as an administrator: provide the resources, offer the training, create the measurable goals, give ongoing guidance and support and positive feedback. We talked about that last week, so important. And integrate into the administrative enrollment and grading systems. So you need to, whatever they do, needs to go back into your school systems. Communication guidelines, you got to respond quickly and frequently. Talked about, students having live contact with the teachers. Parent calls also held monthly. How's Billy doing? What is the parent doing? Did the parent write a journal when Billy wrote a journal? Weekly or monthly meetings. And then I see I'm just about on time. Please volunteer to be a case study in our next session. Here's my, you can connect with me, you can call me, let's talk about, going through some specific cases of putting all these tools together. So many options, so many issues. Let's talk about how we can solve specific, real problems with them in an intelligent way. So that's it. That's what I've got to say. Thank you very much. I'm happy to stay on the phone for questions and comments if people have it. I'll also take a look at the chat, see what people had to say. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Aloha from Kapahulu. So that's Hawaii. Make everybody jealous. I see. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
And there's a question about the PowerPoint, if it would be available.
The PowerPoint will be available. Other resources will be available.
So you all would have probably received a login, and through your account, you can access the PowerPoint as well as the recorded lecture. And also there's a mini quiz. So yeah, that's definitely available.
Yeah. So for those of you who are using this, who would like to get CPE credits or professional development credits, you may be required to take a quiz. So we provide that for you. And we're registering the course for that. If your professional association or state requires something else, just ask us to help you with that.
Super. All right.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Appreciate it. I found it very informative and helpful.
Wonderful. So I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.